Good evening, everyone. So today we'll take up strengthen and weaken an argument, as you can see. And I'm very excited to discuss this topic because strengthen and weaken is something which is a standard and a most often asked CR question type. Also pretty interesting. If you get a true hang of how to do it, you will be in a comfort zone and be able to deal with this question very easily. So today's office hours is dedicated to making this question type simpler to all of you. Today's office hours is dedicated to helping you understand how to structure, strengthen and weaken, and how to identify these question types and what are the best approaches to solve them. Please note that as far as critical reasoning is concerned, the more you structure it, the more you understand question types, the more you pay attention to an argument and the structure of an argument, the better you will feel, the more comfortable you will feel, the less lost you will feel, right? As I always maintain, every time you discuss a sheet with me or a topic with me or solve a book or do any mock, I would expect you to redo it 2 to 3 more times, spend time on the options, help yourself in understanding why certain options are eliminated, and always remember reasons I give to choose an answer and the reasons I give to eliminate an answer. Those reasons, are very important for you to develop a mental map and then work, right? So we should then begin with this, right? And just focus on all these topics, how we structure them. I keep pointing to the word structure, identification of argument, because I see a lot of, very garbage CR on this channel on which I am also here today. On YouTube, a lot of garbage CR being taught. So just beware. Now, as we always begin, which is recognition of the questions. What are the keywords that help us identify, strengthen and weaken questions? So strengthen, naturally we'll say strengthen, support, helps the most has gone over there, justifies. These are the keywords that help you understand that a particular question is a strengthen question. Weaken, of course, the standard term weaken will be there. Attack, undermine, argues against, cast a doubt, challenge, damage, call into question or refute. Any of these keywords will tell you that you have to weaken the argument. So I'll give you 1 minute to note down these keywords. Recognition of what you have to do in a question, recognition of the keywords of the question is always step number 1. So these are the keywords that help you recognize strengthen, and these are the keywords that will help you recognize weaken. If you have noted down this, then please do show of hands or say yes. Call into question means finds a flaw, doubts, weakens. Great. Now, strengthen and weaken are a part of the evidence family of critical reasoning. If you check my video on types of questions, which will be here on YouTube. You will then see a video which tells you what are the different family of questions. So types of questions, in that I discuss what is evidence family, what is main idea, what is inference, right? So, and what is flaws in reasoning, and what are the things that we are required to do in this family of questions. So let me therefore go back and help you understand what evidence family is. But before I move to evidence family, let us reiterate how will we break down an argument. Let me not assume that you are watching this video in a sequence and you know analysis of an argument. So an argument structure very simply can be represented with this equation. I am not a fan of maths. I'm not a fan of a lot of quantifiable things, but I find it most comfortable in teaching when I'm able to give you something as concrete as a formula or an equation, so that it helps you form a picture, and all those of you who are struggling with reasoning have something concrete to go with. Please note that reasoning has a structure to it. Language also has some form of structure to it, even though it sounds and reads all over the place. But your job is to find that structure. So force yourself to read and find that structure, and keep coming back to this or whichever video that you may have seen here, where I've taught you some format of CR, and I'm always going to give you reasons and structuring, so that it is very, very simple for you to assimilate, to understand, and then reproduce or apply. So an argument can be broken down into this format. It comprises a premise and a conclusion, right? Now, what we do with it is, the step number one is to identify this conclusion. This conclusion can be identified using conclusion indicators. Again, do refer to the first CR class on your LMS videos if you are a CP student, where in detail I've taken up what is a conclusion, how to identify it. So there are conclusion indicators. Just for a brief overview to all those people who are watching this for the first time, there are indicators, therefore, hence, thus, and if there are no indicators, then there are conclusion types. A conclusion can advise, suggest. A conclusion can make a claim and say something must happen. So must and should words usually end up being conclusions. Conclusions can be predictors. Something will happen, is bound to happen. And a conclusion can evaluate or compare. This book is better, or this government was better, this president is better. So better, better than, all these are conclusions, right? Now, this is the conclusion that you will either have to strengthen or you will have to weaken, right? And it will be supported with some form of evidence, which we call as premise. Now, in order to support or attack the conclusion, the premise will have to be dealt with, right? Now, the rule says that whatever premise or whatever evidence is present has to be taken to be true. You cannot say that the author is lying. That's not a way to weaken. That is not a way to do anything in critical reasoning. This information has to be taken to be true at all times. And now, keeping this information as true, you will have to still somehow prove that this evidence does not lead to this conclusion and hence weaken it. Or if this information is true, now if you have to strengthen the conclusion or strengthen the relationship between premise and conclusion in what are called as causal arguments, then you have to look for more information or new information. That means in strengthen, you will have to provide what is known as a new premise. So in both ways, you have to give something new to the given argument. In weaken also, you have to show why the premise does not lead to the conclusion. And in strengthen, the premise leads to the conclusion is what you have to prove further. So that means this family of questions is very different from main idea questions. Main idea would be the second or the third class that you would have done in the on LMS or in our classroom. In main idea, we only have to read and identify the conclusion or summarize the argument. But in evidence family, of which strengthen and weaken is a part, you have to provide new information. Right? This new information either has to strengthen this bond or it has to challenge. But while you're strengthening or challenging, you have to believe or you have to take the premise to be true. It has to be taken on face value. Right? So, whatever you are learning at wherever place you are learning, please note that these two family of questions are very different from each other. I see many videos where they say, let's remove this information because it is new. Now, if it is a strengthen or a weaken question, I will keep the information if it is new and relevant. So do not confuse this word new. Right? Please note the answer types are very, very different. Now, what are the quick tip? The quick tip would be the rules. There is a whole list of rules that is taught in the basic classroom of strengthen and weaken. We make you write down the rules, negation of the assumption, right? What happens in causal arguments. So I'm going to briefly cover those points through the questions today, right? So what you have to follow the rules and you will be able to solve all strengthen weaken questions very, very easily, provided you are able to understand the argument quickly. So there are two aspects in reasoning. One is the structure part, which will become extremely easy if you start following the rules you study in the classroom or on our LMS videos. The second is reading of the argument or reading of the passage that will be given to you. Right? So if your structure and information is clear, with practice of reading, you will be able to do both things together beautifully. So for the reading challenge, I always tell you, reread the sheets, redo the books, redo the mocks twice, thrice. The more you read these type of passages, the better your response to newer reading will be. So, follow the rules, right? And second, look for extreme words. Now, this quick tip I am giving you as a bonus. Most of the time you will notice that your strengthen and weaken answers will have words like all, no, most, unless, and only. If these words are present in an option, read that option carefully. Chances are that such types of answers which contain no, all, none, unless, only, these will be your strengthen and weaken answers. Now remember, when you do the main idea class, in main idea, I tell you to eliminate options that contain these words. So just notice how different these two question types are, and that is why I'm stressing on knowing your question type well. So in strengthen weaken, these words will be present in the answer. But in main idea, these words will not be present in the answer. So the two things that you take from this slide are, there will be new information because you need a new option to challenge or a new option to strengthen the premise and conclusion relationship. And two, best method to challenge or to strengthen is give an option that says most people follow this. None of them follow this. All, no, most, these type of words will be there in your answers. If this much is clear, say yes in the chat box. So I'll quickly take you to rules in brief. In strengthen and weaken, the candidate has to find either more compelling reasons to believe the author's claim, or you have to dismantle the author's claim. Dismantle means you have to challenge it. That means in the options, after reading the argument, you have to decide, okay, if I'm strengthening it, let me look for another reason or a better reason. So in strengthen questions, any of the options that add more to the conclusion, you have to keep as your answers. In weaken, on the other hand, you have to show why the premise does not lead to the conclusion. Maybe the premises are correct, but the conclusion is faulty, or maybe the conclusion is fine, but the premises are not the best way to support that conclusion. So you have to challenge either the premises or the conclusion. In weaken, more or less, you have to show that the two things do not follow from each other. Right? Now, most of the time in strengthen and weaken, 90% questions will be made up of a causal argument. Very quickly, I'll teach you what a causal argument is. When the author says that A happened because of B, or if A happens, B will happen. This type of formation of an argument is known as a causal argument. Here the author shows that two things are tied up in a cause-effect relationship. 90% of our strengthen weaken questions come from causal arguments, where the author says B leads to A or A leads to B. A quick tip: if you have to strengthen, you have to say yes, A leads to B. How will you do that? You will say only A leads to B. This will be the best method. But if you have to weaken, you have to show that A happened, but B did not happen. Right? So, in strengthen, you have to say that yes, A leads to B. The best way will be to say only A leads to B. Now there is no doubt that whenever A happens, B will happen. Right? Or A always leads to B. That's another way of strengthening. In weaken, you have to show that yes, A happened, but B did not happen. Right? A happened, but B did not happen. So this is what you have to do in cause effect. So first and foremost, you have to recognize, is this a causal argument? Is it structured on the lines of this has happened because of it, or if this happens, this will also happen. In order to do this, you should do this. Right? So in causal claims, I have to break up the cause-effect relationship, or I have to show that the cause-effect relationship does not exist if I have to weaken, and if I have to strengthen, I have to show either A always leads to B or only A leads to B. Remember the keywords that I showed you in the previous slide? All, no, only, unless. This is where I use these keywords. Right? And many times in weaken questions, you will also notice faults in an argument. So whenever you get strengthen weaken, you can get strengthen weaken mixed with faulty arguments. Now fallacies is the last chapter that we will be teaching you after method of reasoning. Right? So we will have one more session on structure and then fallacies. Now, when we teach you fallacies, your strengthen and weaken will become even better as a topic, because you will notice that many times arguments are faulty. So after the class on fallacies, you will see the argument and you'll be like, oh my God, this is faulty. You know, that's how effective it is. It's like attaining nirvana in critical reasoning. Trust me. And you know, just keep paying attention. The course is beautifully structured and it's a very, very interesting class. In fact, when you do fallacies, you feel so superior to the rest of the world because you see talk shows on TV, you see news, you know, you see people debating and you'll be like, okay, boss, where are you going? Your arguments are all faulty. You know, so just step up your act. And critical reasoning is not just a CLAT exam or a CAT exam or a GMAT paper thing. It makes you a better thinking person and a better communicating person, right? So even now, even with this much, I think you feel very comfortable reading and you feel you must already be noticing so many faulty things happening on TV, aren't you? Yes, so do share it in the chat box. So as I was saying, you will find that many times you also get faulty arguments, right? I will be doing a sheet just now and there is one question on that as well. So if you have to strengthen a faulty argument, remove the fault. That's your quick tip. Remove the fault. Sorry. And if you have to weaken a faulty argument, pinpoint the fault, right? So many times in strength and weaken, you will get 90% of the times you will get causal arguments. Identify what is the author saying is the cause and what is the author saying is the effect. If you have to strengthen it, use all and only. If you have to weaken it, show that one thing happened, the other thing did not happen. Simple formulae, simple, and set options. Just remember these little rules and you will take less than a minute to find your answer. That's how structured it is, right? So if it is causal, I have to weaken it. I have to say this happened, but that did not happen. If I have to strengthen it, I have to say yes, every time A happens, B happens. Or I have to also probably say only A can lead to B. I have to say nothing else can lead to B. So if B has happened, A must have happened, right? And in other times, in strength and weaken, you get faulty arguments. In faulty arguments, the best thing to do to strengthen is remove the fault. In the option, choose an option that rectifies the fault. And if you have to weaken it, just say this is the fault that the author has committed in making the argument. Be a little patient. We'll very soon be doing fallacies in reasoning or faults in an argument, and you will notice yourself, responding even better to critical reasoning questions, right? So at this point in time, I'll give you a quick minute to put down your queries, and then I'm going to share the sheet. So let me share the sheet. Can you all see the worksheet? No, causal arguments are, yes, can stem from conditionals. Pinpoint means, pinpoint the fault means say that this is the fault. Fault को दिखाना कि author ने ये fault किया है, बताना कि क्या fault है. That's pinpoint. Sub-conclusions play the same role as premises. One is conclusion, everything else has to be treated as a premise. Okay, so have you all got the sheet, everyone? Can you all see the sheet in the chat box? So let's go over the sheet. There are 4 questions on weaken and 4 questions on strengthen. So let's do the first 4 questions on weaken. I'll give you some time to quickly finish off the questions. Once you finish the questions, the first 4 questions on weaken, then do please let me know in the chat box. All right, so we are solving the sheet. All those who are just in. And once we solve the first 4 questions, I'm going to discuss them. So I can see some answers coming in. It's best that you solve all the 4 and then maybe push in your answers. So have you done the first 4 questions? This is a live session for everyone who would want to attend. This is a live session for everyone who would want to attend. The sheet is there in the chat. Let me share the sheet once again. So I've pinned the sheet. Okay, so let's look at the first question and mark the conclusion. Would you agree that this is the conclusion? It is truly a waste of time to attend college. Now the author says why it's a waste of time. So the author says that gives this figures, which is a majority figure, 6 out of 10 college dropouts are the richest. Now, in order to weaken this, we have to somehow suggest that this is not a correct representation. Right? So, the author says that drop out of college because 6 out of 10 of the richest are college dropouts. Always remember that the premise data has to be taken to be true. So now the author has tried to make a compelling argument that because majority of the richest are college dropouts, that means dropping out of college would result in your becoming rich. Now we have to challenge this. We have to challenge this relationship. Right? So let's see which option is doing that. Had the 6 people remained in college, they would have been even richer. Option A says that. Okay. So option A is trying to, go opposite. So it is going opposite to the given relationship. It is slightly damaging, but not enough. Why not enough? Because we say, so what? So what? The point is, they are rich, isn't it? They may become richer. That's the extra part. But after dropping out, they are still rich, isn't it? So at least they are rich. And not just rich, they are the richest, amongst the richest. B says attending college helps a person increase the social this thing. So it is again going against the point of attending college, but it is irrelevant. So it is giving us new information about attending college, but that information is not damaging this relationship. So that means I have told you we need new information from the same context as the argument. But remember that information has to also do a job. And that job is to damage this relationship which I have shown. So step 1 would be ideally that you also write down the argument in this format of a relationship like an equation or a formula. Now I have to weaken it. That means I have to disturb this equation. So this social circle is a new information, but it's not disturbing the relationship between college dropout and rich. Would you still agree? The author has not brought in any other factors of how their social life is, how their EQ is, how their marriage relationships are, do they have permanent relationships, do they have commitment issues. All these factors the author has not brought into play. Number 3, statistics reveal that 95% of all new ventures are most likely to fail. This is completely irrelevant. I'm sure all of you have been able to eliminate C as an option. If yes, say so in the chat box. D, the percentage of college dropouts who have gone on to become rich is several times smaller than the percentage of graduates who have gone on to become rich. Now, let's spend time on this. This is damaging the relationship between college dropout and being rich. Yes, the author says that 6 of 10 richest people are dropouts, but that is simply a coincidence. So if you remove the term richest and look at overall college students who become rich versus dropouts who become rich. So option D is saying if there are 100 college students, college graduates, chances are that, let's say, almost 60% are rich versus 100 college dropouts where chances are that maybe only 20% are rich. Now, what is the sheer coincidence? Of these 20%, 6 out of the 10 richest come from this pool of 20%. So that means while in the richest thing, 6 of them are featuring, but overall in dropouts only 20% end up becoming rich. That means 80% of dropouts are nowhere. Whereas 60% of all those who attend college end up becoming rich. So now, does this not disturb the equation? Yes, no? Have you understood this little maths here? Right. So look at this. We have to bring in new information. We brought in new information. And we have to disturb this premise and conclusion relationship. We were able to do it. Right? So, and we'd say that the given premise is true. So we did not say this is false, this is true. But we brought in fresh information that changed the perspective of this true fact which the author has presented. So this brings into my mind a very, very interesting thing. You know, whenever results come out, CAT, CLAT, and we say rank 1 has come from here. So why? Good. You know, so we can change this and we can say that rank 1 came from ABCD Institute. So if you want to get into law school, go to ABCD Institute. So we can change this whole thing, and again we can put it into perspective that yes, while rank 1 has come from ABCD Institute, but overall so many people joined that institute and only so many got selected. From this small percentage of selected, it's fine, they got rank 1. But from this other institute, so many people were enrolled and so many got selected. So you see how critical reasoning changes everything that you view around you. So just keep changing this data. Right? Just keep changing this data over here and you can make 10 questions out of here. But all of them will follow the same structure. So show me a thumbs up if this is clear with both the examples and changed data and a changed perspective. Yes, laughing emojis are most welcome. And option E says becoming rich is not the only measure, which is again irrelevant. Right? So now let's come to the second question very quickly. Now, let's look at another piece of data that we have been given. This is the conclusion. Let's mark the conclusion. Let's mark the conclusion. It appears that residents of Clarktown are becoming more and more health conscious. This is an inference the author is drawing. This conclusion is the type of an inference. Why is the author saying this? Because the sales have increased over last year. Now let's make our little equation. Increase in sales as per the author is equal to residents of Clarktown becoming health conscious. HC stands for health conscious. Right? Now we have to cast a doubt. That means we have to showcase that increase in sales does not mean that these guys are health conscious. Increase in sales does not mean that these guys are health conscious. So what do we have to do? We have to show that increase in sales does not mean that they are health conscious. There must be some other reason. Now, let's look at the first option. Due to a change in the sales tax structure last year, fitness equipment costs 30% less in Clarktown than in its neighboring towns. Now, when you read this option A, you might say, okay, it's irrelevant. Where does it talk about tax and all? But remember, we have to find new information and connect it to the argument. Now, that's the thing you have to learn. Now, how can we connect this to the argument? Can we? Let's see. Sales have increased by 300%. The author feels that people are conscious, so they are buying more equipment. Option A is saying that the people in Clarktown are not buying this equipment. Who is buying this equipment? Everyone else. So people in Clarktown and neighboring towns. Why are they buying the equipment here? Because the same equipment is costing 30% less. So that means sales increase does not mean that people are health conscious. It just means that this place is now cheaper. So only people from this town are not buying this equipment. Everyone else is as well. So answer will be option A. So what have we done over here? we have provided an alternative reason as to why sales have increased. We have provided an alternative reason. So the author showed cause effect. The author showed a phenomenon, sales have increased, must be due to this. What have we done? We have challenged it and shown another valid reason as to why these numbers would have gone up. So in turn, what have we done? We have found an alternative cause. Have you understood this? So B, on the other hand, is strengthening. It is giving another reason to believe that people of Clarktown have become health conscious. C is giving another reason why people could have become health conscious, because they have all become obese. Now they are turning to health. Right? D is irrelevant. Range of fitness equipment is very limited. So why are people buying the same thing? 2 athletes are residents of Clarktown, but just 2 athletes cannot explain a 300% increase in sales. How many treadmills will they buy? So answer will be option A. If you understand this, do say yes. All right, now you tell me the answer for the third one. Now, what type of conclusion is this? This is the conclusion in the last line. And what type of conclusion is this? This conclusion is predictive. Predictive means it is predicting the future. Will. It is predicting the future, right? So what we are saying is that because tongue scrapers are killing bacteria, the sale of mints, etc. will go down. The sale of mints, etc. will go down, right? Because tongue scrapers are killing almost 40% bacteria. So nobody will buy mint, gum and sprays, right? And it gives you lots of research to show why it is killing so many bacteria. Now, option A brings in new information, but of a product which is less effective than tongue scraper. And it is a flimsy option because breath freshening products are the ones that are killing less bacteria than tongue scrapers. And this is what the author is saying. If they are killing 40, other things are killing 30, why will people buy this? So this is reaffirming that yes, mints and gums are killing less bacteria. B is irrelevant. Tongues and have already been on the market for a number of years, fine. But only recently have the researchers concluded that they are killing more bacteria. So they may be on the market, but now as the news will spread that these scrapers are killing more bacteria, author is saying that eventually people will stop buying all this. So B can also be eliminated. C is completely irrelevant because we are not just tackling bad breath, we are tackling the reason of bad breath, which is bacteria. Right? So yes, you do flossing. Number 1. Number 2, the dentists could be recommending flossing, and the word here says many. Many means some. Another reason why you eliminated, let's say that dentists are saying, some dentists are saying, do not use tongue scraper. But is that enough? Is everyone saying do not use tongue scraper? Isn't it? So some is not very effective if we assume that it's a good option. But still it's not very effective. So if some dentists are only saying and majority are not saying it, again it becomes a weak option. A recent, now look at the word recent. Recent means around the same time. A recent survey shows that 94% means majority. Majority. That's a very crucial thing for strength and weaken. Most and majority and all and none. 94% of those who buy mint, gums and sprays are already aware of the tongue scraper. That means they know that the tongue scraper is killing 40% bacteria. Still they are buying it. So tongue scraper is killing the bacteria 40%. Still sales are up. That means these are the people who are buying it. So what have you done? You have shown that cause has happened, but the effect has not happened. This is the best way to weaken a causal argument. And some people will buy. The author is not saying nobody will buy. The author is saying sales will go down. The author is not saying sales will eliminate. So some is anyways not a good option. So the answer will be option D. If you understand this, say yes in the chat box. And the last question. This is a very, very interesting question. It has a fault in it. What is the fault in this question? The fault is that, let me just, on a small sample of information, the author is basing an outcome. Isn't it a fault? On a small sample, the author is basing a major outcome. And this fault is being pointed out. So the author says that 70% of readers of this magazine are planning to buy. Ek to planning. Have not even bought, are planning. Therefore, real estate is likely to jump up. So tell me, what is this small sample? Let's assume that this is about a city, if not a state. So let's assume that city X has 1 million residents. And of that 1 million, 20,000 read New Homes magazine. And 70% of 20,000 are planning, have not even bought, but are planning to buy a home. So is that even 50% of the town? Is that even 50% of the town? So this type of fault is the fault where a percentage is used without establishing the base or the denominator. a percentage is used without establishing a base or the denominator. Right? So we will do this in the session on fallacies. So this is what we have to see in the options. So look at option A. Option A says it included over 50,000 respondents. Now, number one, we do not know how many people actually live in that area. And even if we say that this is strengthening, we have to weaken it. So let's assume that this number is strengthening, but we have to weaken it. The survey has mailed to all the subscribers and included prepaid postage to facilitate. It is also strengthening. So it's showing that the survey is authentic. Readers of the New Home magazine are much more likely to be interested in buying or purchasing a home than the rest of the public. Now this says that there is a difference in the readers and everyone else. So this option shows that readers, number one, is not a correct representation. Could be in terms of numbers as well as could these people, let's assume that even the numbers do not matter. Let's assume that these readers are unlike anyone else who lives in that area. Maybe these are the readers who live in good houses, they are moneyed, and they are only 5% of the whole township. The rest of the township is middle income group or below income group. So what these readers do does not decide what everyone else will do. So basically, what is the fault over here? The fault over here is that it is basing it on a small sample size, assumably a small sample size, and B, it is assuming that the readers, whatever the readers do, everyone else will also do. It is assuming that readers is equal to the whole town. So this is the assumption, or this is the fault that the author has in the argument. If you understand the assumption and the fault, say yes in the chat box. D again, one could say is strengthening. If number of readers has increased, that means it is coming closer to the whole township. And E says all survey respondents received a free issue for filling out. Again shows a reason that they all filled out. Right? Irrelevant to weaken, but in a way strengthens because it shows that everyone filled it out. Readership has doubled. All these are strengthening. So these were the 4 questions for weaken. Let's quickly do the next 4 questions for strengthen. I hope you are working on strengthen. Let's quickly do the next 4 questions on strengthen. To those who have just joined us, the sheet link is pinned on the chat box. And as soon as you do the questions, do let me know. Alright, so Odin, the Lord has said that he has done it. He, she, whatever. So I'm going to assume everyone else has also done it. Is there anyone who is still working and would like me to stop? Lovely. So let's discuss the next set of questions. Now in strengthen, as I already told you that to the existing argument, you have to provide one more reason. Many times you will see that you are actually providing the real reason. The reason given by the author is not so good. And when you read the options, you will come across an even better reason. Right? So work on strengthen on the lines that I have to prove the conclusion to be solid. So sometimes the author does not give a very good reason. I have to read and give a good reason. Now a small problem that can arise in this whole situation is that for some reason you are unable to establish the connect between the correct option and the argument. Because in weaken and strengthen, sometimes the option which is correct is written in a very remote manner. Is written in a manner where you have to know the relationship or know about the situation and be able to connect the two. Okay? For example, it could be an economics passage, talks about taxation. So you have to know the role of taxation in price rise, because the option will talk about taxation or the option will talk about inflation. So you have to know that yes, inflation is related or is about price rise, right? Different tariffs probably lead to price rise. So this knowledge sometimes is required to connect this option with the passage. Otherwise you will feel it's completely unrelated. So this is a slight catch in strength and weaken questions, especially with respect to topics that you're not very comfortable with. And mostly all of you are going to find topics that on pricing and topics on mean and average and tariffs and inflation to be the tricky ones. Rest of the questions you will not find any discomfort in if you have understood what we are doing today. Okay. Alright, so there's some mythology happening in the chat boxes. I can see Thor, Odin, yeah, okay. Amazing. So let's do this one. Very interesting and I think a simple one. Maybe you can give me the answer now. Since we have already done weekend, which I feel is usually students find the tougher one. So studies in restaurants show that tips left by customers who pay their bills tend to be larger when the bill is presented with the server's name, right? Now this is a situation which has been given to us. This is the study and the author feels this is because consumers feel a more personal identification with the server, encouraging larger tips. So we have to say yes, there is a connection between, personal identification and larger tips. PI means personal identification and LT means larger tips. So we have to strengthen it, right? The effect noted in the study applies to patrons paying with either credit card or cash. It's only adding more information, but is not strengthening this. It's not saying that yes, this is true. It's saying, it's assuming this to be true and adding more information. We have to push this. We have to make this true. So this can be eliminated. Name tags for servers have not been shown to have any effect on the size of the bills. Now this is opposing it. Let's eliminate it. Greeting card companies have found that charities that send holiday cards with and written signatures are more likely to receive donations than those who do not have signatures. So this gives one more reason. One more reason. So the author talks about tips in restaurants. C tells us about another situation where signatures or names are the ones that lead to actual donation, whereas those that do not sign a name do not lead to any donation. So that means there is a relationship between personal identification and tips or money or donations. So C is our answer. D again is irrelevant. The size of the tip does not matter. And again, where the restaurants are located does not matter. Even if it is touristy areas, still the relationship holds. Even if it is for a particular demography, the relationship is true, right? So we have to show that this relationship has to be extremely solid. How will it become solid? When I give one more example, which is given in C. So C is not related to restaurants, C is not related to tips. C talks about donations, but C is establishing the relation between identification and money. So answer here is C. If you understand, do say yes in the chat box. Let's come to the sixth one. Now in the sixth one it says, gives you a background information first. The background information is about new technology coming to the market. Here, from this word starts the argument. The author says, announcing new technology after the introduction of a successful device can backfire. This is my conclusion. I hope you agree this is the conclusion. Once consumers hear about the new device, they may stop buying the current one. Right? So the author feels that if you have to announce a new device, it should wait until the purchases of the old device have begun to decline. So conclusion is continuing here. So this is the reason and the conclusion. This advice is continuing in the last line. Right? So we have to say that yes, if you announce the new device earlier, it will backfire. So let's give one reason or an example to show that announcement has left to backfiring. Right? New technology often becomes less expensive after an initial surge in sales. Some information but irrelevant. We have to show if old technology is selling, then one should not announce new. If old technology is selling, OT, old technology is selling, then don't announce new one. Right? So let me change the pen and write it. If old technology is selling, then not announce new. This is what we have to show. Right? Media outlets such as television and magazines often report on the planned introduction of new devices while the sales of old devices are still strong. Yes, this is the correct answer. Why is this the correct answer? Because it says if you are planning to announce new technology, media houses are going to spread it, and once they spread it, while the old devices are still selling, people will stop buying the old one and say, why not buy the new one now that it's come out? So again, this is not a direct premise or new information, you have to connect it to this. So many times options come in this format. You have to write the added two things or make the connection between the option and the argument. As the new technology is announced, it will spread like wildfire and people will stop buying. So the rationale is, if the iPhone 12 is selling, let it sell. Why stop the sales? The moment you announce 13, it will also start selling. But if you pre-announce 13, whatever sales of 12 had to happen will stop, because people will feel after 8 months I'll buy 13. So this is what option B is saying. Many consumers are unable to determine whether new technology, so this is basically weakening. Why is it weakening? Because if they don't understand new technology, then the threat is out. The author feels that the old technology gets threatened if you announce new. Surveys have shown that some consumers buy only 1 or 2 technology purchases per year. Right? Whereas others make more frequent, irrelevant. So this survey is not helping us strengthen this. It is saying 50% are likely to buy, 50% are not likely to buy. We have to showcase, yes, every time you make an announcement, it will spread and old technology will suffer. Right? And consumers tend to be loyal. Now this again weakens. If consumers are loyal, then they're not going to diverse. And also it's irrelevant because maybe they are loyal to a brand. So maybe they don't buy new technology of another brand. But the same company also, if its one item is doing well, it should stop. It should wait till that item stagnates and then bring in a new item. So in a way, it's not weakening. It is just adding information, or it's just giving some information which is doing nothing to the relationship. B is strengthening because B says, if you announce it, everyone will spread it, magazine, news, and once that happens, whatever sales are happening will stop happening. So in a way, B is providing the method with which new technology announcement will hazard the old sales. Do you understand this? If yes, then please do say yes in the chat box. Let's move to the 7th one. Arpan Madhukar, I hope you have understood. All right, let's look at the 7th one. The conclusion is the federal government should encourage these efforts by providing the necessary incentives. So while US companies have become conscious, all this information is here, the author feels government has to support. So we have to strengthen this and say, yes, government should support. Yes, government should support. Right? So, option A, would you eliminate it? It's irrelevant. Would you eliminate option A, irrelevant? Option B, experts believe that energy efficiency could lower the energy use of the United States to the level of 1995. This is incomplete because we do not know what was the 1995 figure. Is that an ideal figure or not? And it does not say that government should support. In an indirect manner, it could say, yes, government should support because we should reach this energy usage level, but we still don't know what was the 1995 level. So it's not extremely bad, but it's not extremely good. Let's see if we have something else. In the past, government incentives have helped energy conservation. Now this looks like a best reason. It gives the example of how earlier the government has done something like this. So all the more reason that government should do something like this again. So C becomes the answer. The dependence on foreign oil is a greater problem. Now, foreign oil or cleaner environment, which one is bigger, which one is lesser, does not matter, irrelevant. The market for cleaner technologies is relatively small because of the infrastructure requirements. Again, it says that market is relatively small, never mind, but it has to give some reason for the government to help. So again, it's not extremely bad. Indirectly, it could say right now market is small, government should help. But we have an option which is directly telling us a reason, a proper reason why government's intervention is needed. So, answer will be option C. B and E, not so bad but not so great either because C is given. Right? And the last one, guys. Okay, I think the screen is frozen. Right? I think the screen is frozen, so I can quickly call out the answer with the sheet is in front of you, I hope. So, yes, in the past it was for the auto industry, Udit, but it was there, right? A similar thing was there. So right now also the government can intervene, isn't it? The idea is that a similar thing was done. All right. Yes, the answer for the last one, question number 8 is C. The answer for the last one, question number 8 is C. Okay. It's not moving. So, let's discuss the options here. Option A. Now, what is the conclusion here in the first case? The conclusion says that after the grant was removed, what did the library do? The library charged extra for overdue books. And now the librarian feels, the director feels that because of that extra charge, they do not miss the state funding, which means that that extra fee has been able to help. Now, how will the extra fee help? If I say I'm increasing the late fees, maybe children will stop taking books overdue. They will return it to me quickly, right? So there won't be any overdue books, but the facts tell us that there are overdue books. The second factor that could affect the revenue is how many days overdue. So if I have increased it by 0.12 per day, that means the number of days overdue should also not reduce. So one part of the fact has been given to us that yes, it's not as if number of overdue books have reduced. That means if 14 books were going overdue earlier, even now they are 40. But for the revenue to help, number of books is not just the concern. Concern is number of days also. So option C adds to this and says that yes, number of days have also not reduced. Because if earlier one book was going for 10 days on an average and now it's only going for 4 days on an average, then also my revenue will come back less. So this is what C is doing. Right? Yes, I can type the answers for all the questions. All those who have just joined in. So answer for number 1 is D. Answer for 2 is A. 3 is D, 4 is C, 5 is C, 6 is B, 7 is C, and 8 is also C. So I hope you've got all the answers, everyone. So please do watch the videos again. If you need it, solve the sheet and look at the explanations again that I have given, right? And do stay connected. You can write to me at surabhi@clatpossible.com. Or you can get in touch with me on my Instagram account, Surabhi_N_S. I spell my name with SURABHI. Or Sahai Surabhi on Twitter. On Facebook, we run a reading club. We have our reading session on Thursday at 7 o'clock. This time we are reading The Kite Runner. So please do read this book and come for the discussion on The Kite Runner. It's an amazing book by Khalid Hosseini. Whatever is happening currently in Afghanistan, that book will give you an in-depth thing on Afghanistan. So do keep reading. It will help you a lot with the critical reasoning as well, as I was telling you. Maybe we help you with the structure, but the reading has to be done by you. Nobody can make reading easier for you. You have to read and understand. So don't fall for claims that say we will make you read faster. You have to read different kinds of things in order to be able to perform on that day. So do read and keep coming for these discussions on the same channel. Also, all those who are not currently our students and would like more help on critical reasoning, we are going to offer only critical reasoning classes as well. So your doubts, sheets, and only the whole module of critical reasoning. So watch the space in the description, the link in the description to subscribe to only critical reasoning classes at Clat Possible. Right? I had a lovely evening discussing this with all of you. I hope you enjoyed the session. If so, please say so in the chat box. Right? And we will come back with something else in critical reasoning, maybe fallacies, maybe method of reasoning in the next class. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Have a great evening ahead.